we have a tremendous amount of time and energy and thought and process that goes into developing policy. So it goes anywhere from someone having an idea, presenting a private member's bill, to all the way to the policies that are put forward through the ministries. And so there's the bureaucracy side of the ministry, and then there's the government side of the ministry. And we work together to develop policies that are extremely thoroughly vetted. They go from the ministry to another committee. I'm on the Health and Social Assistance Committee. So then it goes to committee, where the Ministers Committee, and then it will go to what we call PNP, which is a policy vetting process. And then it goes to Treasury Board, which I'm also one of the 8 people on the Treasury Board, the ministers. And then it goes to Cabinet. And then it goes to caucus for input. And so the process that we develop policy through is not on the back of a napkin. And so when I read headlines in the media, and I look at them, and I know what's true and I know what's not, because I've been there. And I look at the headlines and I say, like, what did you think we did? Just sat around at the dinner table on the back of a napkin and threw this together? No, these policies are properly vetted. There's a process that goes through, and they don't come through to the end unless all that happens. And so there's this concept that it's all just by the seat of our pants. Not true. Not true at all. And having the privilege to sit on Treasury Board is really interesting, because what you see is the fiscal side of things. And you know that we have a $340 billion debt. We had a $15 billion deficit, and we're at risk in this province of having structural deficits, which means we can't catch up. And the deficit just keeps getting piled on the debt. And the previous government was spending $40 million every day more than it took in revenues. Every single day. So when I talk about that whole process of making policies, and that's a hard process, making the decisions that are fiscal responsible decisions, and all of you are here because there's a fiscal conservative in you, those are the hard decisions. The fiscal responsibility is, what do we do? How do we make things better, at the same time being good stewards of hard-earned tax dollars? People work hard for their income, and government must be a good steward of those dollars. And so it isn't easy. It's much easier to do what the previous government did, which was to just give out money, hand out money, to the point where they were spending more than $40 million a day more than what they were bringing in. $1 billion every month going to interest payments. And so, that brings me to some of the student reforms that we've done at the colleges and universities. So that was thoroughly vetted, a very thoughtful process. How could we make post-secondary education affordable for students? How could we make sure that OSAP was sustainable for the students now and into the future? Because it's not just students now, we also have a responsibility for students next year and the year after and in the next decade. Hi, come on in and find yourself a seat. So the first part was the tuition reduction of 10% across the board, unprecedented, never been done before in the history of Ontario, to give every student a reduction in their tuition and make post-secondary education a little more affordable. But tuition, what we saw with tuition, was skyrocketing under the previous government. And when tuition skyrockets, OSAP also has to skyrocket. And what was happening, according to the Auditor General, was an unaffordable Ontario Students Assistance Plan. It couldn't keep going the way it was. In fact, there were students with income of $100,000 getting grants. So what I mean by grants is, for those that don't know, it's just free money. It doesn't have to be paid back like a loan. And the OSAP program has two sides to it. It has a federal side, which is administered provincially, but it's federal. It includes mostly loans. So a very small part of the federal side is actually grants. So they were giving out loans, which the provincial government then had to administer. The provincial side of things was mostly grants. And under the government's last kick at the can before the election, they changed the program so that large amounts of money, they were advertising in subways everywhere about the free money that people could get through OSAP. But we want
Fullerton, we're here to talk to you about the destructive effects the new tuition framework is going to have and how it's unbecoming of a democratic government. This new tuition framework will do harm. It's good that you recognize the tuition is too high, but then you include a slew of cuts that makes post-secondary education less accessible and